Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where I shake my brain nipples every day to get some of that dirty, dirty YouTube money that allows me to provide you folks in-person technology education in Durham, North Carolina. So I do Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. We're doing a class on the OpenAI API in a couple of days. It is all full up. It even has a waiting list, but we are going to have more classes coming in the future. So if you're interested in those, go to silicondojo.com. And if you would like to support what I do, there's a donor box link down below if you want to throw a couple of dollars in there. So I find this, I don't know, what do you say? This is a no-brainer? I think this is an absolute, utter no-brainer, but it's probably one of those things that you should be made aware of because for some reason, people forget that the government has the ability to see most of what you do online. And one of the interesting things we deal with in the artificial intelligence world is there's this idea that you're talking to somebody, right? You're communicating, a therapist, a lover, any of that kind of insanity. And one of the things to realize is anything that you're talking to one of these AI systems, right? Basically, all of the requests, it's just a request, and the responses, they can be recorded, they can be saved, and they can be handed over to the government, right? There are a lot of systems in place already for other technologies. So for telephone lines, there's ways to, again, be able to tap telephone calls very easily. There's ways to see things like text messages from the government. For other things, for emails and other types of communication, there's ways for the government to gain access to that. And so with artificial intelligence, one of the things that comes with this whole new technology is basically what is the legal framework going to be for the government to get access to your communications. It is curious in this modern world, in the land of the free, the default assumption is that the government should be able to get access to your communications. The only real question is how they will go about doing it, which is, again, a wee bit curious. But this is coming from Gizmodo. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, asks OpenAI to unmask user behind ChatGPT prompts, possibly the first such case. So basically, they have a child sex predator, which I don't think anybody is going to support that one. But basically, they're looking for more evidence against this particular perpetrator, and so they want to go into the ChatGPT logs to see what this person was talking about. Forbes writes that a unit within the DHS that investigates child sex crimes has asked OpenAI to turn over information about a user that they say is the administrator of a child abuse website, right? So they say it's a minister of the child abuse website, so they're trying to gain more evidence against them. The person in question discussed their use of ChatGPT with an undercover agent on the child abuse site, which spurred the government to ask the company for records that might assist with their case. Forbes refers to this as the, quote, first known federal search warrant asking OpenAI for user data, and says it discovered the case by reviewing court records unsealed in Maine last week. And so this is a big thing to be thinking about, right? Especially under the Trump administration, right? You know, I talk about all these things, and people say I like TDS. Eli, why do you have TDS? Oh, God. Well, anyways. And one of the curious things with the Trump administration, with a lot of stuff that's going on right now, is basically they're going after so many people that we just didn't really think of as targets in the past. Most of us would not want to be targets, right? You think about this with, folks like the foreign exchange students, right? The international students that come to the United States. And then if they insult Charlie Kirk, right? On social media, if they insult Charlie Kirk or if they insult Trump and he blows a snot bubble, that they can be kicked out of the United States, right? Home of the free, the First Amendment, the very First Amendment is the right to free speech. And so basically we're telling these folks, hey, look, if you say something nasty or snarky that we don't like, we're going to kick you out of the country. Now they have the right to do it, right? Like, it's one of those hard things. Like, when you look at law enforcement, there's something called discretion, and they're supposed to use some discretion. And the idea with discretion is, okay, these laws are put on the books, but what's written in the laws isn't necessarily how you want to go about actually doing things like law enforcement. So you have some some discretion there. And basically with the Trump administration, they're taking the side of being very hardcore. Like, don't allow for anything. If somebody says something that we don't like, use any tools we have to get them the fuck out of the country, right? One of the things to be thinking about, right, with the, one of these, it's ICE, one of these agencies, right? They're coming up with a social media surveillance division, right? Using Palantir technology and other technology, right? Where they are going to surveil on social media what people are talking about. And if they say something that makes them want to cry, they're going to get kicked out of the country. And there's not really much these international folks can do about it because the government does have that power. It's just generally not considered they're supposed to use it in this particular way. And so what becomes interesting here with DHS, and you can think about this, DHS, Department of Homeland Security, going after these OpenAI chat logs, it then adds the question, not about today. Today, if you're an international student or international person in the United States, your chat logs are probably not being scraped. But I mean, if DHS can scrape chat logs for a child sex predator, I mean, shouldn't they be able to scrape the logs of the people that we quote unquote allow into this country, the people that we give the privilege of being in this country? Shouldn't we fully understand what they're asking? Things like OpenAI, and that's where this becomes just, I don't know, is it a slippery slope or an idiotic slope? I don't know. It'll be curious to see where this kind of stuff goes in the future. The prompts that the user entered into ChatGPT seem to be completely disconnected from the crimes they're accused of committing. Forbes writes that among other things, they involved a question about Star Trek and an AI-generated poem composed in Trump style. Forbes also notes that the DHS has not asked OpenAI for any identifying information, as the government already believes it has identified the criminal in question. According to the criminal complaint against the suspect, undercover agents used context clues pieced together from ongoing conversations with the user to put together a profile of who he might be. Those context clues included comments he allegedly made while speaking with the undercover agent, including his desire to join the military, the places he lived and visited, a favorite restaurant, and his work for a military base, among other things. Those clues led investigators to believe that he was a 36-year-old man who had previously worked on an Air Force base in Germany, Forbes notes. So yeah. Anyways, this is the new modern dystopia that we're all in. So the DHS is now trying to get these chat logs, basically be able to subpoena them, to be able to view what people are actually talking about. And so the thing you have to be thinking about here is that these records are stored to such a degree that they can be subpoenaed. And then the question then comes, going into the future, what will the guardrails be? Think about guardrails. We talk about safety and security guardrails for AI, right? What will the safety and security guardrails be for those conversations, especially as people start using ChatGPT and more as a therapist, right? Think about that with a therapist. You have a confidentiality. Well, psychologist, I actually dealt with this at one point. Anyways, therapists like don't have confidentiality. Psychologists do have confidentiality, but that's one of the things, right? You go to a mental health professional and you're expecting a level of confidentiality, which is curious because you don't actually even get that with the humans all the time. Anyways, what becomes interesting then is as people start using artificial intelligence as their therapist, right? What will they tell the artificial intelligence that they wouldn't in the normal world? And then what there can be used against them, right? I think about this right now with Chuck Schumer, right? So Chuck Schumer made a comment about how the government shutdown, which in fact is still going on. Anyways, the government shutdown was good for the Democrats, right? Anyways, it was a very short statement, a very short blurb out of a much longer statement. The Republicans took that and they created a deep fake to make it look like he is just saying that with a smile, right? So think about this. This is a conversation that was had in public, that a professional politician knew was being had in public, and a chunk of that can be taken out of context to try to be used against them. What becomes interesting, right? Think about what you would say in private. Think about what you might say to the best of all therapists, right? A therapist that you know is not going to turn against you. A therapist that you know is always going to be supportive of you. A therapist, right? There's not that human thing, right? When you're talking to a therapist, right? Even though you're the therapist, you might hold back a little bit because you're still fucking talking to a human being, right? Whereas if you're just talking to a robot, you're just talking to an AI, you may lay everything out. And then imagine if you put all of this out there and the government is able to gain access to everything that you said, right? How can that be used against you going into the future? I think this is one of the curious things when we talk about artificial intelligence and the danger of artificial intelligence, and one of my problems with how we're focusing the conversation. So much of the conversational focus is on these weird AI guardrails so that you don't misgender people, which again, don't misgender people. To be clear, for any trans people, don't misgender people. It's not nice. I also don't think it's a quote-unquote AI security issue, right? Being an asshole is being an asshole. But one of the issues that we have is, right, there's so much of this focus when we talk about AI security and safety, again, on these guardrails within the models or whatever else. What I think is interesting here is more questions of how these systems work in their entirety, and then how compromising these overall systems and overall platforms might actually be dangerous for us going into the future. Just one of those things to sit there and ponder and think about. So what do you think about this? What do you think about the DHS asking OpenAI to unmask a user for their ChatGPT logs? What do you think about the DHS of being able to do this? And with everything else going on with the Trump administration, how many steps do you think we're away from their using this type of authority to figure out what international students are asking? What do you think about, again, imagine the government being able to get AI request and response logs from people and then being able to cherry pick very specific things to say, this is not the type of person we want in our country or whatever else. What do you think about that type of thing? Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just be a real Lutnick and do it down there in the comment section. Do remember Silicon Dojo is my pride and joy, silicondojo.com. We're having a class on Wednesday of this week. It is all full. You can't come, but we will be having more classes going in the future. You can go to silicondojo.com to get the schedule of classes. Do remember, free to the end user classes are not actually free. Again, the reason I am here to get the dirty YouTube money is to pay for those damn things. So if you want to support what I'm doing, there's a donor box link down below. And with that, see y'all later.